Good morning, everybody. It is January 16th. I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at RE/MAX Camosun. Welcome to the Victoria Real Estate Show with...
Hello, everybody. Andrew Plank here with the Vibe Real Estate Vibe Collective and Royal LePage.
And...
Jen Lowe, mortgage broker with DLC Modern Mortgage Group.
Awesome. So we were looking through the stats this week and we realized that... we have detailed information on what's going on in each of the communities. And so what we thought we'd do is give you an overview of what's happened in the past, well, in the history of that area, but also in the last 2 years. So you can get an in-depth analysis of each community, and then you can compare and contrast, and you can see where your house is. And of course, if you ever want more information on what's happening in your neighborhood, contact us. We'd be glad to help you, right?
No. I'm too. No.
Okay. So, first of all, if you do like the show, please like us. We're actually going to put out a little survey and just say, if you have any questions that you want answered this year, please answer the survey, and then we can deal with those as they come up. Don't forget to subscribe to us on our YouTube channels and comment if you have any questions, or if you think of something that we need to comment on. And also please share to anybody who you know who's buying or selling. Mm-hmm. All right, Andrew, what's been going on Monday?
So, as of Monday, in January, on the 13th of January 2025, we've had 100 unconditional sales. 369 properties were listed, and I can't read the bottom because it looks like 2,202 active listings on market. We, in January 2024, for the full month, got 341 sales, and 960 new listings came on, with 2,140 active listings by end of the month. So, it's hard to say. This is the beginning, like things ramp up pretty quickly in January. So the beginning half is probably not reflective of the latter half. Wouldn't be surprising to see these numbers even met or exceeded by end of January.
I feel like the market's going fast. What about you, Jen? What's happening for you?
It's definitely improved for sure. Where it's going to be crazy this year is with mortgage renewals. So, which could definitely increase the amount of properties listed for sale with the amount of upcoming mortgage renewals.
Right.
Do you think people are going to get stretched?
Technically, I mean, there's going to be a payment shock, but from a qualifying standpoint, those that have their mortgage coming up for renewal would have had to qualify based on the stress test, whether that's 5 years ago or 4 or a shorter term. So they would have qualified based on a much higher interest rate than the actual interest rate they've had. As a follow-up to our last show, I did look up, Andrew, you asked about how many mortgages are coming up for renewal. And a news article just came out yesterday under Canadian mortgage trends, and 60% of outstanding mortgages in Canada are set to renew by the end of 2026.
16%.
60.
Oh, but I think I asked too, like, were they fixed or variable? Because they're going to be, if they're variable, there's not going to be that sticker shock, but fixed, there will be.
Yes. Yeah. And the amount, what the difference with fixed or variable, I mean, one stat that I saw, just looking at my cheat sheet here, now, mortgages that originated in 2024, 71% had a fixed rate with a term less than 5 years. When I look back 5 years ago, and those people that are coming up for renewal, majority of those were in a fixed rate.
Except for me.
The outlier.
Although my next one coming up for renewal is going to be fixed rate. That's okay.
You're gonna go
But,
fixed rate on your next round.
You know,
No,
Oh,
the
no, I see.
one I'm going to go actually variable.
Right.
Honestly.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Last 7 days we've had 268 new listings, 85 pending. So our list to sale ratio is not that great. I'm finding I'm getting a lot of calls from people getting ready to buy. They haven't made offers.
Mhm.
We have had price decreases of 52, price increases of 3 back on market. This is if usually there's been some work done and the agent has wanted to kind of keep it in the eye of the realtors. So, but they bring it back onto the market formally because you're actually not supposed to be a market if you can't show a property. And solds are 101. That's because we're right at the end and beginning of a new month, and expireds are 35. Withdrawn, I never know what to think about that.
Well, I mean, those are random and personal reasons. People will draw a listing, usually personal reasons, or they've decided to take it off the market for some reason outside of the contract. So it could be for any reason, and that's a hard one to quantify. It's usually it's just a small percentage of what's available on market.
Yep.
I mean, I guess so. You would see a spike in withdrawals early COVID when people were on market, and then COVID came on and people said, I'm taking my property off market. I don't want people coming through my house.
Right.
But generally speaking, unless there's something happening in the marketplace that would cause people to want to make changes, it's going to be random.
You know, we started this show in September of 2020. So it'd be interesting to see if your stats match up. Anyway. Okay. Jen Lowe, what's our financing report, darling?
Well, I would say, so we've had new positive change that took place as of December 15th. We're starting to see the effect of that change positively, which is just so nice. So for example, clients that I've recently been able to qualify that didn't previously qualify were able to qualify for more because of being able to use a 30-year amortization.
Right.
So I just on average, so I threw out just another couple stats here. $700,000 mortgage payment for a 30-year amortization would be $33.84 a month, versus with a 25-year amortization, it would be $37.35 a month. Wow. So that's a $351 difference. And that's a big difference from a qualifying standpoint. It could make it for someone to be able to get into that single family home versus having to purchase a condo or a townhome, for example, getting a property with a suite, those types of things. So
what's the total debt service ratio that people have to reach now? Is it 40?
44 for total debt service ratio, and that includes your housing costs, but any other monthly obligations. So if you have a car loan or if you have a balance on your credit card, we include those amounts. There's another ratio that's important, and that's your gross debt service ratio. And that is specifically looking at your housing costs in comparison to your income. And the maximum for that is 39% of your gross income.
Do they still
not your net? So it's your before tax income.
Jen, do they look at, if I recall right, if you have a lot of credit cards, even if it's zero balance, but you've got, a lot of credit offered to you, that counts against you, does it not?
No. It depends on the lender. Banks usually, if I think of a green bank versus a red bank, the green bank assumes that all those credit cards or lines of credit are maxed out.
Oh,
The red bank does not.
Okay, so that would count against you at the green bank. Just having a credit card, let's say some credit cards are $500 line of, balance or credit limit. Some are, 50,000, and that 50,000 is going to cut against your ability to get a mortgage, even if there's
Yes.
nothing on it. Yeah. Okay. But
Yeah.
only in certain cases. Good to know.
and they also look at the ratio of how much money you owe to the total, right? So if you have a $10,000 credit card and you spend $9,000 every month versus if you have a $20,000 credit card and spend $9,000, right?
Your utilization is determines your credit score.
Okay.
Yeah. So that does have an effect as well.
So
maybe
don't get
we
your don't get your credit check in December.
Let's do a episode where we talk about things we can do to improve or game our credit score, so we can prepare for buying a home and just make sure we get the best possible score. And there's a lot of things I think that we don't realize count against us or actually serve us, because I know that holding a balance can, some like using your card is better than not using your card for getting
Yes.
a good credit score.
And it is the biggest thing that I find people are so concerned about when it comes to pulling their credit score, because it's just that unknown piece that can really have an impact.
Yeah.
But and people are always very relieved when I tell them, well, no, your credit is actually really good. So most definitely it'd be great to do an episode on that.
Let's do that. Yeah.
I don't get how my husband's credit score is better than mine, considering I pay the bills. Like,
He doesn't have to pay the bills.
That's why you pay all the bills.
He's a better credit risk.
I'm just kidding. Okay, so we're just going to look at the home price index. This is one of many ways that you can look at the value of your home. We're looking at this just in terms of single family homes. All the data today is going to be in single family homes. So if you want more information on condos and townhouses, then we can look at that with you privately. Andrew, do you want me to do it or do you want to do it?
I'll do what I can here. So we're talking about the various areas, so I can go through this in single family homes. We had a benchmark price in December of 2024 for Greater Victoria itself of $1,151,200. And that's actually a little bit less than the month before, which was $1,157,005. And definitely up a bit by just about 20,000 from the year before. December 2023 was 1,132,000. So what have we got there for percentage change from last year? Is 1.7 up percent and down 0.5% from last month. So when we look at the core areas as a whole, so Greater Victoria. No, hang on a second. So Greater Victoria, so core would be the areas of Greater Victoria minus the West Shore and Peninsula. So we've got the core tends to be higher than those outlying areas, and we've got 1,306,400 for our benchmark price. And I'm going to skip ahead and just do the percentages rather than talk the numbers for November 2024 and December 2023. So for December 2024, again, for core homes, 1,306,400. That's up 0.3% from last month and up 2.7% from last year. For the West Shore, we've got a benchmark price of 1,006,400, and that's down almost 1%. It's down 0.9% from last month, but it's up 1% over last year. And then when we look at the Peninsula, we've got 1,252,900 is the benchmark, and that is down 1.5% over last month, but up 2.8% over last year.
You did a great job, buddy.
Thank you.
I love this graph, or whatever you call it, matrix. To me, it really shows, like in a nutshell, where the changes are. So let's just look on the right-hand side. You can see houses have done relatively well year over year compared to condos, which have just slightly decreased a bit.
They've fallen
And
a bit.
Rotown.
Townhomes actually are doing better than, other than peninsula townhomes. Townhomes themselves have done better than single-family homes on average.
I think the peninsula townhomes have to do with the design, because you tend to have a senior there, and some of them are 3 levels. And I know that they've been struggling.
That would have more trouble. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to look at different areas. We're going to compare and contrast. So Colwood, this is the data. The top graph is the data from 1990s. So you can see over time how the prices have increased. So we had a big bump in 2006. And then again in 2018, we leveled off. I remember when 2019 happened, I was talking to somebody at the end of 2019 and saying, we're in a very balanced market. And then of course, COVID happened and we took off. So since somebody once said to me that every 10 years the prices double, and so 500,000 in 2008, and in 2016, no, we weren't there. 600,000 up to about 1.2 now, 1.1 in the last year. And then average prices have over the past 2 years, they have, if we were to draw a straight line and look at the trend, they've been around 1.1 in Colwood. And I think a lot of that has to do with new construction. Want to do Langford?
It's quite bouncing around a lot, sure. So it's interesting, look at Langford, and we've got, back in 1990, so 35 years ago, you could buy a single family home for $150,000 on average. And fast forward today, and we are at 1.1 million. So, if we were to say doubles every 10 years, it's been, so what was that? 1990, another decade is the year 2000, and let's say that's 300,000, then would have been 2010 would be 600,000, and 2020 would be 1.2 million, and then add another 5 years. We're not far off really, but we're a little behind the 10-year average. And I'm seeing, and I think people are saying now that we're not seeing quite the every 10 years doubling, but we're still seeing really big appreciation over time.
I think that housing has changed. Like people have perceived housing now as an investment, right? It's a product.
I guess so. I mean, when I can't speak to what people felt about the real estate market before I got into it, and myself in the early 2000s, both as a buyer and then as a realtor. I can say that I think it's always been about shelter, and there have been times that have been hot for investment and not so hot for investment. I think that has to do with governance more than anything. I think people will always see real estate as an investment as well as shelter, and they'll see it more as an investment when the guardrails are off from the government perspective.
What I mean is that in the 1990s and previous to that, people, because the price of housing was so flat, people looked at it as, okay, well, this is the price of my house, and in 5 years, that's going to be the price of my house. And now people look at it as, oh, I've added value, I've updated the kitchen, and this is an investment that I should be getting return on. So I don't think it's necessarily realistic. I'm just saying that's when I have a conversation with somebody who bought 5 years ago, they're like, well, my house should be worth more.
Yeah. I think there's a, what's it called, where people, they feel entitled to property appreciation. And, we don't control the market that way, and we can only tell you that, you're not entitled to property appreciation. We can tell you that on average, property values go up over time, but you can see when you look at this average prices for Langford, for example, they, like even just last 2 years, average prices bounced around a lot. I mean, that, it really depends, but we're actually on a bit of a downslope here in the last few years for average prices in Langford.
Yep. So this is also the activity in the two areas. So Colwood only started really developing new construction, I would say, in the past 5 to 10 years. So they're not quite where Langford is. So their units max over the past 2 years were 35 units a month. And Langford has been up between 50 and 60. So they just have more, I think they have more new construction. And it's interesting when you look at the average house price, because we're looking at both brand new and also like 30 and 40-year-old houses, which compete against each other.
And Langford tends to have a larger relative percentage of newer construction. Colwood is starting to see that, especially with Royal Bay and those kind of developments. But there's certainly, it can really skew both the inventory and number of homes sold and the average pricing, depending on what you've got for new construction.
Yep.
Question. Do you notice when you're showing listings, do people pay attention to the property taxes from one municipality to another?
Yeah, because they do if you tell them. Because in Langford, I think the property taxes are supposed to double.
Well, and it's so funny when we look historically. I mean, Colwood's property taxes used to be so much higher, but now definitely different with Langford.
Yeah.
I know, I've had people say, oh, I don't want to buy in Esquimalt because their property taxes are so high, or, the different municipalities do have a different property tax scheme. And I guess that is something to consider. It's, in the grand picture, I think there's a lot of other factors to consider as well, but certainly it goes into what is your affordability and your monthly costs when you average it out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want low taxes, go to the only municipality that has a casino, which is View Royal.
View Royal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is North Saanich. So you can see they're all following that same kind of pattern. North Saanich had a big bump in 2006 as well. And they were fairly steady. I remember thinking that they were a good deal compared to other, like to Machosen and stuff. And they peaked in 2002. That's because a lot of people were looking for homes on large lots for...
you mean 2022?
2022. Sorry, I'm really tired. And then the prices have come down since then. And average prices, again, here you can see actually there was a peak in 2023 of, holy smokes, $2.6 million. Wow.
Average price for North Saanich. Wow.
Holy.
So
it has water.
What's that?
It has waterfront. Like some of the...
There's some beautiful properties out there. And, as people are starting to look at more work from home, but still wanting to be close to the city, they're considering some of these further afield, more rural properties, because you've got some actually pretty secluded, larger lot homes out in North Saanich. It's quite a mix, actually. There's also there's some small community stuff, or at least tighter, like Dean Park, beautiful views, and quite a nice subdivision. But
we're looking at an average over time of around 1.65, 1.6. So there's really just an outlier.
We've seen dropping prices over the last couple of years. I'm curious what I should know this, but I was going to say once we get to the core, I suspect we're not going to see that same kind of drop. I think what we're seeing is some of that drop as people go and find that their money goes a little farther in the last couple of years. They're coming back to the core and spending their money there, and not necessarily going to some of the outlying areas they used to go as a second choice.
Yeah, and sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I live in Machosen, and it is very much like that. And there was a house around the corner from me that took forever to sell previously. And during COVID, it just flew off the shelf. But I think right now people would find it too big.
Mhm.
I'm agreeing with you.
Okay. Oh, well, that's rare. Mark that on the calendar.
Hey, you want to do Central Saanich? You rascal.
Sure. Sure. So again, so if we go back to 1990, we were average price looks like it was just a little over 200,000. This graph's a little hard to read because it goes from 100,000 to 250 for some reason. I guess it goes in one. Okay, I see what it's doing. It goes in going in 150. Every line is $150,000 gap. Once again, it reached a peak in looks like 2021 in this case, and then came down, but started to swing up again in terms of average price here in 2024. You know, pricing jumping around again. It tends to follow a bit of a cyclical annual cyclical cycle. When we look at the lower graph, we're following the average prices over the last couple of years. But we seem to, you know, we were in December 2024 at a down point, but you know, December is always the low point. So we're probably going to see that popping up again.
To me, Central Saanich is unique because they have these big rural farm, like agricultural properties. And then you have Brentwood Bay and you have, you know, certain port pockets, literally pockets, but it's mostly a lot of land. Yeah.
The Central Saanich Village. So it is. And yet, I think Central Saanich is some of the best value out there as Victoria develops out, because it's not super far from town. It's an alternative to the West Shore. And yet there's a lot of ALR land in that area. So it's actually constricted for what can be built there. So I see future property value appreciation as the core builds out.
Yeah. To me, it's a shoulder district between the city and the airport.
Yeah.
So just looking at units sold, North Saanich has been hovering around 10 plus or minus 10 to 12 over the past 2 years. And Central Saanich has been fluctuating quite drastically from, again, it was probably dependent on price point. So
Now,
from 5 to 20.
And should point out, you know, so this unit sold, it's not a large number. It's not a large sampling. So when we look at these average prices as well from the past slide, that's another reason why we see these numbers bouncing around as well. Because we just don't have enough sales to create a smooth graph.
Yeah, so it's really funny when people say, do you specialize in Metchosin? I'm like,
yeah.
I don't think there's not enough
business to do that. Yeah. You can focus on Metchosin and you can have experience in Metchosin, but if you were to, you know, peg your whole career on Metchosin, that might be a little problematic.
All right, so now we have Esquimalt. So Esquimalt has had a bad rap. You can see it started out way less than other municipalities, and the rate of increase is not 150,000; it's 100,000. So we were at just over 50,000.
Jane, I'm going to point out that this graph starts in 1984 as opposed to 1990. So it's actually not so. I mean, it's interesting to see. You could buy a house in 1984 for, you know, maybe $75,000, but 1990, it looks like we are more like 150 for a house in Esquimalt.
Okay, interesting. So the data that we get is dependent on when they were starting to record this stuff in MLS, and generally it was started in 1990. So interesting. Good catch there, Andrew. So in 2006, again, we had this bump, and I remember thinking at that point that I should buy in Esquimalt because I felt that it really is, like, relative to the proximity to downtown, it is a very good value. During pre-COVID, it went up to around 750. Again, good value. And then it really bumped up. And now we're up around 1,050,000 and fairly steady over the past few years, considering that there's been decreases in other areas, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the Esquimal's come up a lot. I think there was a time when, and I'm not sure if, I mean, having grown up in Victoria and being a young person in Victoria, and if you went to Esquimal, you almost felt threatened because there was, I guess, the military presence there. And it just felt like a little more rough and tumble and less welcoming. And I feel like maybe and that might have just been personal experience or, what my friend group was dealing with. But at the same time, I feel like the whole feeling of Esquimalt has changed. And I think that's also because, well, I just, it's just changed a lot. It's no longer just a lower income transitory home where people kind of come and go and don't really have a lot of connection to it other than higher population of military folks. And I think, go ahead.
Well, my kids went to school there, and we belonged to the oldest speed skating club in Canada there, the Esquimalt Speed Skating Club. I run a page called I Love Esquimalt because I love Esquimalt, and we talk about a lot of activities that are happening. And I think it's one of those areas people are very proud. Their mayor is excellent. She's got her finger on the pulse there, and I think they have really done a good job of helping people develop responsibly there.
Yeah.
Well,
it's probably kind of.
Oh, sorry,
like
Andrew, go ahead.
Like some places, I think the people who've been there and grown up there, and it's really their home. I know I was talking to somebody, and this is more in Vic West, but all of these various areas where, like Langford especially, has seen a lot of changes, but Esquimalt is one of these as well, where new influx of new buyers, property values going up, changes in the neighborhood, and the old Esquimalt is still under there, but it's not as visible. Esquimalt does and always has had a lot to offer. Beautiful waterfront areas and some nice like the pool and recreation center there is amazing. So yeah, a lot of good stuff there.
And
it's undervalued. It still is, I think.
Yeah. What are you?
I'm born and raised Langford. So I grew up in Langford in the 80s and have seen the change out here. And it's amazing because the big rival was Esquimalt.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
So I moved here I moved here permanently in 99, and Langford and Esquimalt had a bad rap. Was it like high school rival or like community rival?
High school. Yeah, very much high school. I bought my first house, like when I find this graph very interesting because I bought my first house in the year 2000.
Yeah.
And then my second house in 2006. And I feel very blessed and lucky when we did buy, just looking at how prices did increase over time.
And you bought in Langford though, not Esquimalt.
In Langford, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We are very lucky. All of us. Yeah. Okay. Average house price, as I said, was around 1.1. And then, okay, let's compare View Royal. So here we have, what I did was I looked at people who were west of the gorge, communities west of the gorge. So View Royal is again another shoulder district like Central Saanich. It's not really West Shore. It's not really downtown. It's quite close to downtown. But we can see that it's mirroring the pricing here of Esquimalt around 1.1, but it had a different trajectory. So around 2006, and then again in 2016, prices increased in Esquimalt, And we're seeing this here, 2006 and 2016. And I feel like the line is a little sharper in View Royal. What do you guys think?
I mean, sure.
It's the View Royal's the only one that didn't go down in the municipalities in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I think it's an area people miss a lot of. Like I've done open houses there for listings, and I remember meeting these people who were looking in Fernwood, and I called up their agent and I said, you know, those people who came through my open house, I think I have a listing coming up in View Royal. I think they'll like it. And she was from Victoria, and she's like, they want to live close to downtown. I'm like, View Royal is close to downtown. It's 15 minutes by bike.
Depends on traffic, though. I mean, Craigflower Road can get pretty knocked, pretty busy, and bumper to bumper. And same with if you're going to try going up Admirals. So you're kind of locked in View Royal at times, especially when people are trying to get out after work and the Colwood Crawl on the highway gets busy. So does View Royal. I think View Royal is a great space. I feel like what holds it back is traffic.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying by bike.
Yeah.
By bike, man. By scooter.
Bike. It's
Okay,
got a lot of different areas to it too. View Royal is both, the Thetis Vale area near Thetis Lake, and then it's also, the mobile home parks along Craigflower. It's got a lot. It's got those kind of single family home. There's strata detached homes on Demos behind the Admiral's Walk. It's got like some really different kinds of real estate all throughout it. And there's some good options.
So they have a development plan near Old City, between Old City Hall and Admirals. On the east side, there's a plan to develop that area, and they're putting in new condos there. So they're looking at really increasing the densification. I do think they really need to focus again on transportation. Yeah. So anyway, we are at $1.2 million for those areas. And then in terms of the number of sales, we're higher in Esquimalt. More activity happening. Like double. Okay.
More population, more activity.
We're going to do the two Saanaches, and then we'll do Victoria and Oak Bay, and then we're done. Okay. For those who want to go. Okay, Andrew, you want to take it away?
So my prediction that we'd see more stable pricing in the core doesn't look like it's holding up. Average prices have come down a little bit over the last couple of years in Saanich East. That being said, there's a huge jump in average price from November 24 to 2024 to December 2024, like quite a significant jump. And it does seem like the market is kind of coming back in the core and everywhere. So if once we sort of move this graph one step forward for the years, I think we are going to see a price increase on the average prices, I think, across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Saanich West. Sorry, you go ahead.
This one also goes back to 1980. All these graphs are going back to 1984.
So Saanich West tends to have more rural properties, and in terms of little municipalities, you have maybe Royal Oak and Glanford area. That's in Saanich West. And then you're going up along just near the rural areas of Prospect Lake, etc. Those areas. So average price started at $50,000 in 1984, and it's now around 1.15. And it's been fairly steady. And like that other community, it has maintained its value in View Royal. And I think this because, again, people are realizing it's not that far out of town. It's quite easy to get in and out. There's also the Camosun College campus out there on interurban.
Mhm.
And average price here, wow, over 2 years, it's really increased.
Excuse me.
December 2022, it was at 850, and now it's at 1.25. Wow.
Sorry. Right. Okay. But again, when we're talking maybe just a couple of sales, then that could have been some smaller homes in Saanich West that sold cheaply, and then like that's that.
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
right.
looking back at the actual graphs, you can see like the actual year graphs. No, for Saanich West. Saanich West,
Mhm.
there you go. So when you're talking about December 2022, when you look at the 2022 graph, I don't see a significant, like the upper graph,
Yeah.
it's not a huge rise. So there must have been, the graph before must have also had some higher stuff, that this would have been a dip that we would see rising up again on the left-hand side of the lower graph, if anybody follows what I'm trying to say. But it's certainly not showing on the bigger graph.
Well, you can see here
Units sold, yeah.
it is low in December 2022, which is what you were saying here.
Yeah.
That the average was low. And you can get some good deals, I think, there. Often, like, people, again, this is not a place where people, because it's not as, it doesn't have like a big shopping area or anything. It really is a rural community. There's some great stores though along West Saanich Road.
Mhm.
And then units sold, Saanich East. Saanich East is always the most active area, so we're looking like around 50 a month, and then Saanich West, we're looking maximum of 40 some odd, generally around 25. So, all right, Oak Bay, Andrew, take it away.
So once again, goes back to 1984, and if you'd bought a home in Oak Bay in 1984, you would have been paying just over $100,000. And today you're going to pay over $2 million. So there you go. So what is that? 40 years ago, and we've got now talking about that doubling. Let's say 125,000 times, would have doubled 4 times. So 125,000 becomes 250, becomes 500, becomes $1 million, becomes 2 million. This has followed that 10-year average of doubling every 10 years.
And you can see over the past 2 years, we have maintained around 2.2 million. It's funny, today this guy was talking to me. He's moving from Alberta, and he was talking about where he fit in. And I'm like, you totally fit in Oak Bay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He likes the finer things in life.
Okay. And so he was saying, this is who I am, and you were saying, based on who you are, you're an Oak Bay person.
I've known him for 5 years. He is a North Saanich or an Oak Bay person, for sure.
Okay. All right.
All right. And then Vic West. So I wanted to compare, I wanted to compare Oak Bay with Victoria, because I feel like a lot of people come into the city. The physical map of Victoria literally shows downtown Victoria. And then generally people tend to move east and they go into Oak Bay, and then they tend to go up the east side of the peninsula, or they go on the west of the highway. It just seems like they don't cross over. Anyway, so I just thought it was interesting that here we are looking at average price in Victoria. So we're seeing a max of 1.25. So if you were to compare the two areas, you're probably going to get a better deal in Victoria than you are in Vic West, and you're going to get a better deal in Vic West as compared to Victoria. Average price in over the past 2 years, we are at 2 million in Oak Bay, and we have been hovering around 1.3, I'd say. We're below that right now, around 1.225.
Yeah.
So you would get a better deal in Victoria or Vic West than Oak Bay.
So Oak Bay, Victoria, Vic West.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, better deal is all relative, so I guess it depends on what you're actually wanting to buy.
Right.
And, there's better property appreciation, let's say in Oak Bay, and maybe property stability. Vic West might be a bit more up and down. There's a wider gamut of available types of property in Vic West. Oak Bay is primarily single family homes with some condos and maybe a few townhouses. Victoria has such a wide different of offerings, from like the downtown core and the steel and concrete condos to the Vic West older homes to Fairfield with the, some of the larger but really beautiful homes, to North Park or Hillside. It's just
Also,
it's,
like
it's
Oak Bay hasn't grown in forever. And so, like, there's been no subdivision of land there. There's been no new construction. It's just been replacement.
Mhm.
Like no increase in the volume. And I think the population has decreased, but it's gotten more exclusive, I feel. So in 1984, they were around 100, and Victoria itself was around 75,000. And then in we see a peak of 2.3 million in Oak Bay and 1.4 million in Victoria, Vic West. Anyway, units sold. We are seeing, in general, though, there's more units sold in Victoria and Vic West, and I think that's because of all the condos. What do you think, Andrew?
Definitely. I think that there's more inventory in Victoria Vic West. There's going to be more turnover in Victoria Vic West. Oak Bay tends to be a longer turnover. So not surprising to see less inventory in Oak Bay. And that's also why the prices can be high in Oak Bay, because it's supply and demand, and there's limited supply for a high demand item, which causes the prices to be up there.
Yeah. One thing that builders have been doing, I've seen a few, like they completely reno houses there. So they've done a good job of really flipping them, I guess would be the word.
Yeah, people are buying the homes and then hiring a contractor to completely refurbish the old home. Or, I mean, some are a tear down, but most people in Oak Bay generally upkeep their homes, but every once in a while there's somebody who hasn't. But there's a lot of value in keeping, there's some beautifully constructed homes, and people are keeping with the feeling of the street and how it was built. You do see some infill, or at least some newer construction, but it's rare. And it's actually sometimes harder to sell.
There's one on Hampshire right now. That's in $2.3 million range. And they it's strata titled, which also kind of scares some people. Alrighty. You know what? We're coming to the end of our show. So how about we tell people how we reach you? Andrew, you want to go first?
Well, we reach you by you reaching out to us to give us your contact information. Our contact information is, you can reach me at 250-360-6106 by phone or text. And you can email me, info@andrewplank.com. And I'm also on Instagram under Plank Andrew. So check out the website, andrewplank.com, or our website for the Vibe Collective at realvibe.ca.
You've got that vibe going on. Jen, how do people reach you?
Yeah, I'm at 250-217-4925. Email jen@jenlo.ca, and my website is jenlo.ca.
Alrighty, and if you want to reach me, I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun. My number is 250-744-0775. My email is briarhillgroup@gmail.com. Please visit me at briarhillgroup.com, or you can watch this show and more at victoriarealestateshow.com. And if you want to follow what it's like to really live in Victoria, follow me on Instagram at realtyteacher_Remax_Victoria or Briar Hill Group. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye now.